Chapter 6. The skyline is a marriage of red and orange as the sun hides behind the mountain range. The cool breeze flows off to the east for its nightly slumber. Stars begin to faintly twinkle through the light hues of red. One by one, the people of Mercantile proceed to the old, faded brick buildings they call home. Children say their last farewell to the day by dancing with sparklers, while the elderly sit and watch. They laugh and tell stories of their youth. Several adults near the windmill herd the livestock into barns west of the apple orchard. One by one, parents peek their heads out of their windows, telling their children it's time to come in. Sadly, the children heed their parents' calls and vanish until the elders are all that remain. Off toward the mountain range, the cloaked Mercantile soldiers prepare shift change. Some head home to their families. The single residents all make their way to the cafeteria to drink and fraternize with one another. Drinking, smoking, and listening to the local band round out the nightlife in Mercantile. The soft melody of each instrument flows through the village, a comforting tune to lay weary heads. A 2-story inn sits adjacent to the cafeteria. Tonight it's home to only 2 travelers. Eric is too exhausted to partake in the nightlife. As for Rod, he's sitting on his balcony smoking and watching the last bit of the day wash away, enjoying the music from below. He hears his room door open, then close, and climbs back through the window where he's greeted by Talun. The merchant leader walks to the table in the corner with a drink and a plate of food. He sets the plate onto the table, then sits in one of the chairs. Rod walks over to join his dinner guest. The aromatic steam dances through the air as the hunter moves closer to the plate. "So, what's on the menu tonight?" Rod asks. "Broiled swine with an assortment of steamed vegetables," Talun replies, leaning back in the chair. Rod holds his meat up to Talun for a quick dinner toast. "Cheers, my friend, and thank you for your hospitality." "It is I who owes you thanks." Talun brings his mug toward his longtime comrade, and they clash, with white foam bubbles splashing out. Both men take a hearty gulp of their drink. He looks again at Rod with heavy eyes as he moves the mug away from his lips. The boisterous and jolly demeanor vanishes. "So, it is done." Rod puts his hand in his brown cloth pants, reveals the vial, and sets it on the table. "Tulum was already dead. I changed the contract to a blood contract. Your brother has been avenged. The debt has been paid with blood." The merchant stabs a piece of swine and places it into his mouth. Talun picks up the vial, staring at it with malice. "He was an ignorant fool, but he was my brother. I pray those despicable creatures at that godless asylum burn for all eternity." He slides the tiny flask into the left breast pocket of his tunic. The room is silent for a moment for prayer and reflection. The only sound is the wick burning from the candles scattered throughout the room. Talun looks at Rod, interrupting the silence. "Well, enough of that. My scouts sent word that the sanitarium is in ruin and no one has been seen coming out." The hunter nods, washing down the swine with mead. He recounts the events at the sanitarium. He divulges much about the torture that went on, and Dr. Armistead dabbling in ancient texts. "I figure the prisoners of the sanitarium suffered long enough. We live in a desolate world, no need to add any more misery to their lives," he concludes. "Orgrimdir will just find another place to house their prisoners and godless experiments," Talun replies, diving into the cuisine again. He chews savagely and continues, "It will take several weeks to a month before Claudius gets word anyway. We'll buy people some time. They will probably use the bell tower for a time, till a suitable facility is acquired." Rod leans back from the plate. He finishes the food in his mouth and questions Talon's previous comment. Wait, I thought the Brothers Grimm had a contract for the tower.
They do, for taking care of the bell tower beast. The contract in question actually comes from within the city. Though I do not know the name of the requester, I do know it's someone within the council. They offered to pay handsomely, and, of course, Slade couldn't resist.
Sounds like Slade for sure. And I'm sure Gabriel is tagging along to watch his back. Slade's recklessness has gotten him and Gabe into hot water more than once, Rod replies.
True. However, Talon replies, they have not been heard from for several weeks. Gabriel is very good about checking in with scouts. Slade not so much.
Several weeks. Rod pauses in deep thought. That would put them around Midland.
Aye,
Talon replies.
As of now, they have not made it to Midland.
Could be they had sufficient supplies to not stop, Rod insists. At any rate, they are more than capable. Maybe another contract came up during the trek.
Maybe.
Before forgetting, Rod tells Talon of the hag being held prisoner. This dug deep into the merchant later. The hag, called Mother Gertrude by many, is chieftain of the nomadic tribes, the Wastelanders. Talon and Mother Gertrude have been friends for many years. Their first meeting took place several years before the Lycan Wars, when the whispers of a werewolf army up north were still considered old wives' tales. The chance encounter was in the southern territories, closest to the radiated lands. It was a small wooded village, home to pale-skinned children, later to be known as the Children of Avalon. Talon and Mother Gertrude formed a bond of friendship in their attempt to combat the entities that bound these ghostly children into the physical realm. Mother Gertrude is a telepath and medium, a human with the ability to look into the ethereal plane and make contact with planewalkers. Talon and the merchants held the physical demons at bay, while Mother Gertrude contended with the elder demon within the ethereal. Even though she bested the beast, her body was severely wounded. The ethereal scars from the demon manifested physically across her chest and face. Remembering the event still haunts Talon to this day, as he shakes the sight of Mother Gertrude's wounds from his mind. Tonight he will try and make a mental connection with the mother, to check on his old friend. The truce between the three, Wastelanders, Merchants Guild, and Orgrimdir, has started to wane. The imprisonment of Mother Gertrude is a betrayal of their alliance, but more information is required before Talon can take appropriate action. The next events with Rod need to be held delicately, if they are indeed on the precipice of war. Talon begins to change the subject, but is interrupted by Rod. So, what do you think of Eric?
The blonde that came with you?
Yes, Rod answers.
I think he will fit in nicely. I'm in need of able-bodied men to travel the Wasteland. Too many men and women have not been heard from. My faith is starting to wane, Rod. I wrestle with my choices daily. It would be easy to close off my borders to keep my people safe. Let everyone else fend for themselves. But I know that would make me no better than those damned demons. There seems to be no end in sight.
Rod places a hand on his friend's shoulder. These are the moments when we have to rely on each other the most. We, as a species, will weather this storm together. We each have to do our part. I think Eric has the resolve and loyalty to be a fine merchant.
Perhaps you are right. No, I have faith you are right. We will start his training tomorrow. Well, what's your plan now?
Talon asks, going for another slice of meat.
You have more than enough supplies as payment for the last contract.
Rod contemplates the question. For the first time in 2 years, he isn't on a contract. He looks at his comrade closely. He knows this is a loaded question. The response could go several ways. He rolls the dice and replies, "As it stands, I have no plans." Talun slips his hands inside a front compartment of his tunic. He fumbles around, then produces a small tin can and a box of matches. He flips the tin open and pulls out a hand-rolled cigarette, puts it in his mouth and lays the tin down, motioning for Rod to partake. He indulges and waits for Talun to light his cigarette. The merchant leader lights, taking a deep inhale, then passes the matches to Rod. He thumbs one out and lights his. They both take several drags in mental solitude. After several moments, Talun breaks the peace again.
"News came this morning about a tournament being held in Orgrimdir 2 months from now. Apparently, Claudius is looking for the best warriors in the Wasteland. The winner of this tournament will get a personal audience with him. They will be allowed to ask for one favor."
Talun takes another drag from his cigarette, while Rod peers into his friend's dark, calculating eyes, waiting for the catch. "So you're telling me this because you want me to enter?" Talun chooses his next set of words carefully.
"I just received a contract from the local resistance in Orgrimdir."
"Oh, come on, Talun." Rod throws his arms up in disapproval. "I'm not taking a political contract."
"Now, just hear me out."
Rod storms over to the window, flicking the cigarette out into the cool air. He puts his hands on his hips and looks out into the torchlit night. He responds to the merchant, never taking his eyes off the sky as the last splinter of sunlight says its farewell. "Let me guess. They want me to win the tournament and assassinate Claudius."
"From what I can gather, yes."
"Shit." Rod shakes his head in disdain before looking back at his friend. Their eyes lock. They've met on this verbal battlefield many times throughout their friendship, toying in the affairs of the people in power. Each one the same as the last, spouting the same old rhetoric. They're fighting for the rights of the people, working toward a just world. However, it always ends the same, with absolute power corrupting them absolutely. Talun looks to hope, a hope that someone with a pure heart will rise to lead humanity into an age of light and love. Rod stands directly across from him, on the side of cynicism. They will always give in to the lust for power over their fellow man. On many occasions, the debates would turn argumentative. At one point, with the help of alcohol, the argument ignited into a fistfight. They always respected each other's stance, but were too stubborn to give an inch on either side. They would tell you, however, that it's passion, not stubbornness. "This won't solve anything. I somehow win and make it past all of his armed guards and kill him. Someone will just take his place, continuing with their own form of tyranny. And what about me? I'll be hanged, tortured, or sent to the Colosseum for sport for the new High Lord of the Walled City."
"I don't know all the details. All they asked was for me to send our best hunter to hear their proposition. That is all you're obligated to do."
Standing up and walking over to the window, Talun places his hand on Rod's shoulder.
"I'm asking as a personal favor to at least hear them out."
"That would be 2 you'd owe me."
"This will also give you a chance to find any clues on the Brothers Grimm whereabouts."
"Fine, but I'm cashing in my favors the second I get back."
"My friend, I'll give you 3 favors for this."
Talun lets out a bear of a laugh. The 2 men head back to the table to finish their meal. After lighting yet another cigarette, Talun goes over the details.
Now, you have 2 months to get there. The torch at the top of the world is lit blue. When it lights red, the tournament will begin. You will need to be registered before that.
That's cutting it close, especially if I need to hunt down the brothers, Rod says.
Yes.
Guess I have no choice but to leave in the morning.
I'll get your typical supplies loaded and ready by then. As always, my friend, thank you,
Talun says with a sympathetic tone. Rod grimaces. Don't thank me yet. A boisterous laugh erupts from Talun's belly. The attention turned to the collecting of dinnerware. He bows to Rod and heads to the door. Calm air fills the dimly lit apartment. He lights up another cigarette, inhaling and letting the smoke linger in his lungs longer than usual. When Rod can't take it anymore, he exhales a cloud of smoke like a dragon. The sly son of a bitch had this planned from the beginning. Quiet laughter breaks the stillness of the night as Rod gulps the last of his drink, then turns in for the evening. Tomorrow starts another trek through the Wasteland.